Hello and welcome back to Coins World. And today we are diving deep into one of the most beloved coins in American numismatics, the Jefferson nickel, particularly focusing on the 1984 version. The Jefferson nickel is a coin that holds both historical and cultural significance in the United States. It is a coin that has seen many iterations over the years, but its history began long before the 1984 issue. To truly understand the Jefferson nickel, we must look back at the roots of U.S. coinage, the decisions that led to its creation, and how the coin has evolved over time. The story of the Jefferson nickel starts with the founding of the United States Mint, an institution that has been responsible for producing the nation's coins since its establishment in 1792. During the early years of the mint, there was a need to create coins that would reflect the values, ideals, and figures of the new nation. The first significant change came with the Coinage Act of 1792, which authorized the mint to strike coins and create the first official U.S. currency. Over the years, various coins were produced, each reflecting the growing identity of the United States. But the story of the Jefferson nickel truly begins in the early 20th century, when the country was undergoing profound changes in both its economy and political landscape. By the 1930s, the United States was in the midst of the Great Depression, a period that saw widespread unemployment, economic hardship, and a need for national recovery. It was during this time that the U.S. Mint decided it was time for a new coin, designed to reflect both the country's history and the need for revitalization. Prior to the Jefferson nickel, the 5-cent piece was known as the Liberty Head nickel, which had been in circulation since 1883. The Liberty Head design had served its purpose, but was beginning to show its age. Additionally, there were issues with counterfeit nickels being created, which prompted the mint to consider new designs to prevent fraud. In 1938, the U.S. Mint decided to replace the Liberty Head nickel with a new design featuring the figure of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, a founding father, and the author of the Declaration of Independence. The selection of Jefferson for the nickel was both symbolic and fitting. Jefferson was a central figure in the history of the nation, and his contributions to the United States were immense. The mint's decision to honor him by placing his likeness on the nickel was not only a tribute to his legacy but also a nod to the nation's democratic ideals and commitment to progress. The design of the Jefferson nickel was entrusted to sculptor Felix Schlag, a German immigrant who had won a competition to design the new coin. Schlag's design was a departure from previous coin designs. On the obverse, or front, of the coin, Jefferson's portrait was depicted in a realistic and dignified manner, showcasing his prominent features. This was a major change from the more stylized depictions of figures that had been common on U.S. coins up until that point. On the reverse side, Schlag chose to depict Monticello, Jefferson's estate in Virginia, as a symbol of his vision for America. Monticello represented not only Jefferson's architectural genius, but also his beliefs in education, agriculture, and the pursuit of knowledge. The new Jefferson nickel was first issued in 1938 and quickly became a staple of American currency. Over the decades, the coin underwent subtle changes, with variations in the design and composition, but it retained its central themes of honoring Jefferson's legacy and promoting American values. The coin's design remained largely unchanged until the 1960s, when the United States began to experience major societal shifts. The 1960s marked a period of great change, from the civil rights movement to the Vietnam War, and these events would have a lasting impact on the country's coinage. In 1966, the U.S. Mint began experimenting with new materials for coinage. Due to the rising cost of precious metals, this led to changes in the composition of many U.S. coins, including the Jefferson nickel. In 1965, the Mint introduced a new composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, which replaced the original composition of 35% silver, 56% copper, and 9% manganese. The new alloy was cheaper to produce and helped keep the cost of minting coins down during a time of economic instability. Despite these changes in material, the design of the Jefferson nickel remained largely the same until the 1980s. The 1980s were a period of technological advancements, shifting political landscapes, and evolving cultural attitudes, all of which would eventually influence coin designs. By the early 1980s, the U.S. Mint had been considering updating the design of several coins, including the Jefferson nickel, to reflect the times and to make the coins more secure from counterfeiting. However, the 1984 issue of the Jefferson nickel remained true to its original design, It was produced in large quantities and circulated widely, becoming a familiar part of the American landscape. The 1984 Jefferson nickel, like other coins of its era, was struck in the traditional 75% copper and 25% nickel alloy. It also featured the familiar obverse design of Jefferson's portrait, which was now nearly 50 years old. Jefferson's likeness had been a part of American currency for decades, but by 1984, it was beginning to feel like a reflection of a bygone era. Despite the familiarity of the design, the 1984 Jefferson nickel represented a turning point in American numismatics. It marked the final years before the U.S. Mint would begin to introduce more modern and complex security features on its coins, and it was part of the last generation of coins to be minted in large quantities without advanced anti-counterfeiting technology. While the design of the 1984 Jefferson nickel remained largely the same, subtle changes began to emerge in later years. In 2004, the U.S. Mint began issuing a new series of nickels to commemorate the bicentennial of the Louisiana Purchase and the Lewis and Clark Expedition. This series introduced new designs on the reverse of the nickel, featuring images related to these historic events. These designs were part of a broader effort to celebrate America's history and heritage through its coinage. The 1984 Jefferson nickel, however, remains a symbol of the earlier era in American coinage, a time when the country was grappling with economic challenges and social change, yet still clinging to the ideals of its founding. For collectors, the 1984 Jefferson nickel holds particular significance. It is a coin that was minted during a transitional period in American history, a time when the U.S. Mint was still relying on traditional methods of coin production before the advent of modern technology. The 1984 issue of the Jefferson nickel, along with others from this era, is highly collectible, especially in higher grades, due to its historical context and the gradual shifts that would come in the decades following its release. Numismatists and collectors appreciate the 1984 Jefferson nickel for its connection to a pivotal time in American history. It is a reminder of the nation's past struggles, its journey through economic hardship, and the role that coinage plays in preserving the legacy of the country's leaders and events. Today, the 1984 Jefferson nickel is still found in circulation, though it is far less common than it once was. Its value, like many circulating coins, is primarily its face value of 5 cents, but for collectors, it can command a premium depending on its condition. Coins in mint state or those with unique characteristics, such as errors or special variations, can be particularly valuable. As time goes on, the 1984 Jefferson nickel, along with other coins from the 20th century, will likely continue to increase in value as part of the broader numismatic market. Collectors who appreciate the history behind the coin and its place in the larger story of American currency will continue to treasure it for years to come. In summary, the 1984 Jefferson nickel is more than just a 5-cent piece. It is a coin that encapsulates the history of the United States, from its founding ideals to the challenges of the 20th century. It tells the story of a nation in transition, of a mint adapting to new economic realities, and of a coin that has been part of the daily lives of Americans for decades. Whether you are a seasoned collector or just starting out, the Jefferson nickel, and specifically the 1984 version, represents a tangible piece of American history that is worth preserving, studying, and appreciating for years to come. Thank you for joining me today on this deep dive into the Jefferson nickel. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Coins World for more in-depth explorations of coins, their history, and their place in our world. Until next time, happy collecting.